ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد. I would like to start by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making this event happen, and thank Imam Amir Mustafa Al-Turk for inviting me personally to be part of this event. I have been asked to talk about Islamophobia in our history and how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dealt with it. But before I get into this subject, I just want to make a few quick points. One of the main criticism against the concept of Islamophobia is that it has been used to immune or to protect Muslims from being criticized, especially criticizing the extreme aspects or groups within the Muslim world. And I just want to make it clear that Islamophobia is not equal to anti-Semitism as it is understood in the American media and the American society. Because anti-Semitism is used, it is a law actually in Europe, that if anybody questioned the Holocaust or deny the Holocaust by law in a place like in France, this is a violation of the law there. So we as Muslims, we have to make the differentiation between intellectual criticism, even to our history, even to the Qur'an. If someone wants to criticize anything in Islam intellectually, we have no problem with that. If anyone wants to criticize the extreme groups within Islam, we are doing this. It is part of our job, it is part of our ethical responsibility to criticize those who go to one extreme or the other. But Islamophobia, as Imam Mustafa clarified, it is the intense hatred and prejudice against Islam and Muslims. We have also to differentiate between those who do not know anything about Islam and all what they hear about Islam is from the media, and there are so many misconceptions. There are plenty of people, Muslims and non-Muslims, who ignore so many things in Islam, right? So when people sometimes are ignorant and they get the information from the wrong people, then it's different from someone who is part of what I can call it the industry of producing Islamophobia. So many people around us, our fellow Americans, they didn't get any chance to know about Islam or to hear about Islam or to study Islam and to attend a conference like this or to visit an Islamic center to know anything about Islam and Muslims. So they have their excuse. Maybe they have some misperceptions or misunderstanding, and maybe they develop some unfavorable views about Islam and Muslims, but this is not like someone who is deliberately producing misconceptions about Islam and Muslims. As Sheikh Mustafa said, there are tens of organizations around the world, very well funded. Their only job is to produce materials to scare people from Islam and Muslims. And this fear tactic or fear-monger tactic is not new. It has been there all the time. Demonizing or defaming a particular person or group, it's not new. And it is our responsibility, I believe, that we should spread the message of Islam and to counter these misperceptions by talking about what Islam is. In the past decade or so, after 9/11, we often talk about what Islam is not, rather than talking about what Islam is, because we have to defend ourselves against all these misconceptions. So it is our part, it's our responsibility to, first of all, understand Islam, seek knowledge, This is what will give us confidence so that we can feel comfortable talking to anyone. Many people have this misunderstanding, and they will sometimes, some people come, is it true that you Muslim want to do this? Is it true? And these are the good audience, the good people who come really want to seek knowledge, or they want to engage into a discussion. But other organizations and individuals, their entire job is to scare people. And this is what we are talking about. We're not talking about intellectual criticism, criticizing, some aspect of Islam. And we, Muslim scholars, we have to, engage these books and intellectuals into an intellectual discussion to clarify the point of view of Islam. But these people who produce these programs and talk shows and books and magazines and quote-unquote studies, and they are considered experts in Islam, there's no point of engaging them in any discussion because they are not as ignorant as we think they are ignorant. They know what Islam is, and they know very well. In every religion, there are extreme people who produce extreme ideas, but the mass majority of Muslims disagree with them. So why do we talk about Islamophobia? Because we need to know what's going on around us. Muslims should always be aware of the ideas and thoughts and the movements and intellectual, social, political dynamic within our society. We need to be fully aware of this, but that's not it. Because being aware of this sometimes make us afraid of talking about Islam or even being visible. So we need to know, but we also need to build together as Muslim community a plan of action. What are our priorities? What kind of things that we need to learn ourselves? What kind of curricula that we build in our Islamic schools and weekend schools? What kind of ideas that we need to address in these schools? So the other quick point I want to make is that Islamophobia, the way it's defined by Imam Mustafa, is not a sign of weakness in the Muslim part. It's exactly the opposite. It is a great sign and a clear sign of strength of Islam. If Islam is so weak and Islam is shrinking and not growing and not expanding, then there's no point of spending millions of dollars, right, to defame Islam. But the very fact that Islamophobia is there and is growing reflects the growth, the strength of Islam. And there are some numbers people are kind of very scared about. And this is how they introduce Islam as a threat for their culture and their lifestyle. Do you know that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the West? Do you know that Islam is the third religion in America? If you talk about Christianity, Judaism, some argue it is the second after Christianity. But according to John Esposito in his book, The Future of Islam, which I really encourage you to read, and also there's another important study by Pew Center that suggested that globally, Islam and Muslim community is expected to double by 2030. So Islam is growing for a number of reasons. We still have more immigrants come. The birth rate is very high, among the highest within the Muslim community, and Mormons and Catholic as well. And the big number of people who convert to Islam, despite the 9/11 and what followed. And to some, that's scary. How come after 9/11 all this work to defame and demonize Islam and Muslims, still many people, and the majority of them, by the way, are women, convert to Islam every year, thousands of people. There are statistics and numbers about those who convert to Islam. So what I want to say here is that Islamophobia is a sign of strength and growth, not a sign of weakness of Islam. We need to look at Islamophobia from a broader perspective, the perspective of the sunan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid on this earth. One of these sunan, one of these laws that never change is the conflict between right and wrong. haqq and batil. This conflict started early on when Allah created Adam. There was a conflict between Adam and Iblis, and then the children of Adam fought. There will be always. There has never been a period of time when there was only evil or there was only the truth. Both existed. And they cannot coexist and have peace together and live together. There have been always conflicts. So when we look at Islamophobia, we look at it from this perspective, that this struggle and conflict between right and wrong has been there and will continue to be there to the end of the time. And consequently, I would look at Islamophobia also as a sign that gives us the feeling that we are following the straight path, the path of all prophets and messengers who came before us, because this is what they have suffered. Defamation, attack, spreading lies about them and their da'wah. So when this happened to us, this should not actually make us feel that we are inferior or are afraid of the society. No, it makes us believe that we are following the straight path, the path of all prophets and messengers. So Islamophobia should be a reason for courage, patience, perseverance, seeking knowledge, not the other way around. It is also a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Qur'an that some people worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on edge. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. So if everything is going fine, he's a good believer. But when a fitna or a trial or Islamophobia rises, then وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ فِتْنَةٌ انْقَلَبَ عَلَيْهِ. He turned his face to a different direction. Now Islam now becomes a source of trouble. I'm not Muslim, and many, as you know, change their names and try to change their identity. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us this is what happened in the past, and this is something that we should look at it as normal. This is the norm. If you decide to follow the truth, this is what you should expect. Let me very quickly talk about some Quranic guidance, because Al-Quran is full of stories of prophets and Al-Anbiya, and we must look at Al-Quran as the main source of guidance for us as Muslims. When we study anything, we must go first to Al-Quran to see what Al-Quran said about it, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet ﷺ stories of prophets who came before him, and the end of Surah Hud, which is full of these stories, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَجَاءَكَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَقُّ وَمَوْعِظَةٌ وَذِكْرَى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And each story we relate to you from the news of the messengers is that by which we make firm your heart. You are not the only prophet who faced this kind of challenge, right? You are not the only one whose people rejected him and fought against him and gave him a hard time. This is what happened to all prophets before you. So when we read Al-Quran, we read the story of Nuh, Ibrahim, Musa, Isa, alayhim salam, ajma'in, we understand that is the norm. This is what you should expect. Another ayah I want to very quickly talk about, in Surah Al-Dhariyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that similarly, there came not to those before them any messenger except that they said a magician or a madman. And then Al-Quran says, did they suggest it to them? Every prophet, no exception. Every prophet came to his people to guide them. They said about them either he's a magician or a madman. And Al-Quran says, did these people advise each other that when a new prophet comes to you, accuse him of being a magician or being a madman? It's as if every nation advised the other nation that when a prophet comes to you, say that to them. This is how consistent Islamophobia was. And when we look at Al-Quran Al-Kareem also, we will see some sort of course, there are many examples. I'll just talk about some of them. We all know the story of Musa and Fir'aun. But the reason Fir'aun wanted to kill Musa alayhi salam, it must be justified. He must find a reason to kill Musa alayhi salam. So in Surah Ghafir, Fir'aun said to his people, وَقَالَ فِرْعَوْنُ ذَرُونِي أَقْتُلْ مُوسَى وَلْيَدْعُ رَبَّهُ. Why? Is it because Musa has an argument that I cannot really counter? Is it because what Musa says makes sense and what the religion that Fir'aun has made does not make any sense? No. Fir'aun is smarter than this. Fir'aun said, two ayat actually reflect how he brainwashed the masses. He used his media outlet to scare people from Musa. He said, let me kill Musa. Why? Because إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَنْ يُبَدِّلَ دِينَكُمْ أَوْ أَنْ يُظْهِرَ فِي الْأَرْضِ الْفَسَادِ. Because indeed I fear that he will change your religion or that he will cause corruption in the land. So Fir'aun, he is the guardian, the godfather to the Egyptian people, and because he wants to preserve their culture, their lifestyle, he wants to kill Musa, not because Musa is a prophet or anything. So the prophethood and the message is just disappeared. Musa now is a source of a big threat. I'm afraid that Musa will change your religion, your way of life, يُبَدِّلَ دِينَكُمْ, your way of life, or that he may cause mischief on earth. What kind of mischief that Musa came to achieve? What kind of corruption? Musa, the only request Musa made to Fir'aun, let me take Bani Israel and leave Egypt. That's all. That's the only request. Musa alayhi salam was sent to take Bani Israel and arsil ma'ana Bani Israel. Let Bani Israel leave Egypt, we'll go to the promised land, the holy land in Al-Quds. I said, no, I'm afraid. And look at the word fear, inni akhaf, the word khawf and fear. And when Fir'aun fears, Musa, of course, everyone should fear Musa because Musa will change their lifestyle, their culture, their religion, their way of life, and he will cause mischief on earth. What kind of mischief is it? You know that Egyptians are farmers, whereas other people are they follow the rain. You know the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and when there was a drought in Palestine, the brothers of Yusuf came to Egypt to get food, right? So because the Nile River, agriculture is always there, and there are always fruits and food. So when people suffer drought, they come to Egypt. The Egyptian people, they didn't have, in the old days, I don't know about today, but because of the Nile River, they have their homes, they have their lands, they farm. They don't have to go from one place to the other where there is abundance of rain. So Fir'aun was threatening the Egyptian people. He said that قال الملأ حوله إن هذا لساحر عليم. When Musa alayhi salam presented the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Fir'aun was very, very smart. He wanted to scare his people. He said, you know what, the blessings you have your own homes and lands, and you don't have to travel around like the Bedouin people. إن هذا لساحر يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم بسحره. His goal is to take you out of your land, to suffer, to wander in the desert. So think about it. If you're an Egyptian person, you have your own home, your children, your land, you don't have to, get a visa somewhere else. People were self-sufficient. So he spread this fear. إني أخاف أن يبدل دينكم, and here he said يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم بسحره. Musa wants to take you out of your land with his magic. This is how he used the fear-monger tactic to scare Egyptian people from Musa. And I guess many people who never seen Musa before, they were scared of Musa. No, I want to stay here. I don't want Musa because he's a magician. Stay away from him. Stay away from him. Another instant, we know also the story of Lut alayhi salam. And when his people wanted to kick him out of their village, what was the justification for this? أخرجوا آل لوط من قريتكم. The best thing to do is just get them out of here. Push them out. Why? They said, إنهم أناس يتطهرون, because Lut and his people, they are not engaging in our tradition, and their tradition is homosexuality. They are the only people who invented this evil practice. So get them out. Why? Because they are so dangerous. They will change our tradition. They purify themselves. So we don't want Lut and his people to stay here. The best thing to preserve your culture is to just get them out. Now let's go very quickly to the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Also, time is limited and there are many examples. I just want to show you the council, the advisory council to debar pilgrims or hujjaj from listening to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, scaring people. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to utilize the season of Hajj when people come to Mecca. So he goes in Mina, especially from one tent to the other, talking to different tribes, introducing Islam to them. So the people of Quraysh said, now it is the Hajj season. Hajj season is approaching. And we should not contradict one another. You say one thing about Muhammad, I say something else, then people will find out that we are just lying. So let's find out what should we say about him. How should we scare people from Muhammad, from even listening to him? In this advisory board or council, Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira was the head, the wisest person. And they said, well, what do you suggest? He said, you tell me first, what do you think? What should we say about Muhammad? So someone said, let's say he's kahin, he's a soothsayer. And the Kohan, they lived in Arabia and they mumble with some words that nobody understands what they're saying, and they claim that they know the future and so on and so forth. But Al-Walid said, no, nobody will believe you. Because the way he speaks, the way he acts, he's not a soothsayer. People can very quickly find out that he's not a soothsayer. Another suggestion was, let's say he's an insane, he's a madman. And he said, no, that's not a good idea, because once you talk to Muhammad, you'll see how wise he is. When they listen to his Qur'an, they will say, it's impossible for a madman to say these words of wisdom. It's impossible. No, find another suggestion. They said, let's say he's a poet. Because, poets live there and they use actually to compete with one another. And he said, no, I don't think it's a good idea, because people can find out this Qur'an, he says, has nothing to do with poem. It's different. We know the patterns and the style of Arabic poem, and what he says has nothing to do with poem. So people can find out that it's not the case. So what should we say? And look at how Al-Qur'an al-Kareem revealed to us what happened in this meeting. And you can, by analogy, think of the meetings of the people who run Fox News and run all these Islamophobic organizations. In this meeting, the guy was just going back and forth, thinking and thinking again and thinking again. And the Quran revealed to us, actually, as if you're seeing him. In Surah Al-Muddathir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about this man, Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, who was the head of this meeting. He said, إِنَّهُ فَكَّرَ وَقَدَّرَ. Indeed, he thought and deliberated. فَقُتِلَ كَيْفَ قَدَّرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cursed him for what he thought. He said, so may he be destroyed for how he deliberated. Then may he be destroyed for how he deliberated. Then he considered again. Then he frowned and scowled. Then he turned back and was arrogant. And finally, after thinking and deliberating and going back and forth, he said, Al-Quran said about what he said after this thinking, deep thinking, and said, this is not but magic, imitated from others. This is not but the word of a human being. So he said, the best thing we can all say is that he's a magician, and his words cause people to leave their leadership, and it separates people from their children, and from a husband from his wife, and wife from her husband, and a man from his son, and so on. Never listen to Muhammad, because his words are very powerful, and when you listen to him, this will cause a lot of troubles to you. Because people at that time, they believe in magic. And they all agreed that, let's say, the same thing. He is a magician. إنه فكر وقدر فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر ثم عبس وبثر ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر إن هذا إلا قول البشر. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right after said سأصليه سقر. I will cause him to enter the hellfire. That's سقر. وما أدراك ما سقر. He's thinking, what should we say and how to say it? As a result of this, a person with the name At-Tufail ibn Ad-Dawsi, At-Tufail ibn Amr, he is the head of a tribe called Daws. He's a wise person, he's the head of his tribe, he's a poet, he's a poet himself. And when he went to Mecca to perform Hajj, someone from, those who came out of this meeting, they told him that, you know what, in Mecca there's a person called Muhammad, don't listen to him because what he says is very powerful words and you might leave your leadership and it will very negatively affect you. So stay away from him. It's like now when you go to an airport and ask you if you got the immunization, what do you call it, meningitis shot. They have to check this. You got this, shot so that you don't pick the virus. This was real. You read the books of Sirah. This was how they prepared people and scared people from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And At-Tufail ibn Amr Ad-Dawsi, he said, I put cotton on my ears fearing that I may listen to Muhammad or hear Muhammad even by mistake. I don't want even to listen to him. I want to remain the head of my tribe and so on. And while he was doing tawaf and this cotton bothered him, it seems, and he said to himself, why am I doing that? I'm a wise person. I'm a poet. I'm a poet myself. I know what is right and what's wrong. When I hear any poem or anything, I'm wise enough to differentiate between right and wrong. So he took this cotton off and he went to listen to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he listened to some ayat of Al-Qur'an al-Kareem, and he immediately, because of all these qualities I mentioned, said, this cannot be the word of any human. This must be the word of Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu annaka Rasulullah. How many Tufail ibn Amr we have here in this society now? People who really want to listen. They never got that chance to hear about Islam. And they have just one source of knowledge regarding Islam and Muslims. But I'm sure there are plenty of people like him. And this maybe explains why many people convert to Islam, because they got the chance to interact with Muslims or to listen to the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They immediately can understand. At-Tufail ibn Amr brought his entire tribe later on, and they all became Muslim. But the point here is, I just don't want to go on for so long. Islam is powerful. It's not because Muslims are necessarily powerful. And I don't have to speak so much about how weak we as Muslims are. We are 1.5 billion Muslims, 1/5 of the world population. But you know better than me what's going on in the Muslim world. So if Islam is to be protected only by Muslims, Islam would have died long time ago. But fortunately, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who protects Islam. So our job is to understand Islam, to live Islam, educate people about Islam, and leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Actually, I was planning to talk about the ayah that Imam al-Turk has mentioned. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا. We know that you feel or you suffer, you feel the pain of what they say about you, about Allah, about Islam, and the fact that they rejected you. But it's not of your business to install guidance in people's heart. Your job is to convey the message. It's our job, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, to give guidance to those who are sincerely looking for it. إِنْ عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. Your job is to convey the message. Don't kill yourself out of sorrow that they rejected the message. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بمسيطر. After Islam, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Islam spread everywhere. And 5 years after the death of the Prophet, in only 5 centuries, Islam went everywhere. And one important date you need to keep in mind is the 1453. This is the time when Istanbul today became a Muslim state. This was a very huge event in our history. 500 years, Islam spread everywhere. Islam went to Europe, in Andalusia, in Spain, right? And went to many different places in Asia that used to be Christians before. In West Europe and in Asia. At that time, many people in Europe in particular, they were kind of very scared because Islam reached the heart of the people before Muslims even come to them. So what is so appealing? This was the big question. What is so good about Islam? That started spreading very fast in a very short period of time. It's not because Muslims were very powerful, necessarily. Islam went to Indonesia, into Malaysia, and into South Asia without having any Muslim army going there. So what is that in Islam that attract people? What's so attractive in Islam? People started this long time ago, and still people asking this question: what's so good about Islam? You know, when something becomes an international brand, like Coca-Cola, for example, you know, people say there must be something good about Coca-Cola. You cannot mess with success. Coca-Cola is a successful business. No, we cannot deny this. We can, warn against drinking it. It's a different story. It's not healthy, but nobody can deny the fact that there's something good about it. Right? Although it represents the Western American culture, but now in China, in Japan, and everywhere in the world, people like it. Right? So there must be something good about Coca-Cola. So what is so good about Islam? It's simplicity, rationality, straightforward, justice, equality, whatever it is. But the fact that Islam is spreading and going very fast everywhere, to some, is very scary. So to immune their people, they spread so many false information about Islam and Muslims. That including that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is a false prophet. He just made up a religion from reading the Bible and the Old and the New Testament, and he made up this religion. Islam is not even a religion. We hear these things being said now. Islam is not a religion. They criticized George Bush when he visited the Islamic Center after 9/11. And they criticized Barack Obama when he said that Islam is the religion of peace. In the last speech, he said, they criticized him. Well, how dare you say Islam is the religion of peace? This is not to say that Obama was sincere in this. It's a different story. Right? So Islam is not a religion. Muhammad is a false prophet. Muslims are barbaric. They mistreat women. They kill and they do this and they do that. So people are scared. So they try to immune their people, first of all. But then this is how they were able to, after 5-6 years, 5-6 centuries, they went everywhere in Europe. And Europe at that time, it's called the Dark Age or the medieval time. When there was ignorance, fighting, wars never stopped in Europe. So they wanted to utilize this power to create an enemy. And then the Crusades came. The idea of the Crusades is to, instead of killing each other, let's go and fight one enemy. It's political, but it started with these Islamophobic campaigns. These Muslims are barbarics. They are destroying the grave of God to them in Jerusalem. We have to go and protect our holy places there. And the Crusades happened as a result of this. But what happened next is that Istanbul, Constantinople at that time, which was the capital of the Byzantine Empire, became a Muslim state in 1454. This was almost 200 or 100 years after the Crusaders left Jerusalem and the Middle East. So they left, the Crusaders have been badly defeated, and they left after 90 years of occupying Jerusalem and the surrounding area. And then Al-Qustantiniya, Istanbul, became Muslim, and Muhammad al-Fatih, when he entered the Hagia Sophia, for those of you who went to Turkey, and he found the Christians praying there, and he left them, and they finished their prayer, and it was Asr time, and he entered, and they called Adhan, and they prayed Asr there. And the people in Europe were scared. And a bunch of them were actually sent to the Muslim world to study Islam. And this was the beginning of what we call today Orientalism. I will finish in maybe a couple of minutes. Orientalism. They said we need to study and understand what Islam is. At the time of the Crusade, they brought many books, and many of them were studying Arabic. They memorized Qur'an better than any one of us, and they read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith, and all these things better than any one of us. So the problem with Orientalism was not that our people are studying our history. The problem is that Orientalism went hand in hand with political invasion and Christian missionary. So in order to spread Christianity, then you need to know Islam, study Islam. They don't study Islam to understand it and to follow it, but they study Islam to try to find misconceptions. Oh, this is what Muslims did. This is what we hear now. Muslim mistreat women. And they pick from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ some akhbar that might not even be authentic, and they said this is what Muslims do. This is what the Prophet Islam did. So to spread this misunderstanding, they went and they studied. This happened actually after Istanbul became a Muslim place, until Napoleon came to Egypt in 1798. He came to Egypt, but among his soldiers were these people who lived for so long in Syria, in Baghdad, in Cairo, and elsewhere, and they give him every details about their tradition, what are their holy days, and what are the sensitive areas and things. So Napoleon came with full knowledge about the tradition, and he tried actually to buy the scholars of Al-Azhar in Egypt. But when they knew, or when they found out that there is a growing renaissance, if you want, he came to destroy it. But again, he used these Orientalists, those who studied Islam and Muslims very well, to be among his soldiers. From that time, actually, from the time of Napoleon, and then the Industrial Revolution, and now you can see the power dynamic went actually was not in the advantage of Muslims, and how the Westerns used their power to colonize the Muslim world. And since that time, we as Muslim Ummah, we are questioning our identity. Who are we? What happened? Why we are so behind, and why the West is going far ahead? Still, many people, now I'm not generalizing here, some people in the West, they understand how powerful Islam is. And now the time when Europe and the West, they needed more Muslims to come, 20 million. They need still 20 million people to come as immigrants to work in their factories to meet the demands of the Industrial Revolution. Islam is growing everywhere. The question is, where are we from this struggle? Our job as Muslims, I believe, is to, first of all, to understand Islam, to know what Islam is. Studying Islam for us is not nafl, it's a fard. It is a fard. We need to know, because so many people talk about us and talk about Islam more than we do. We need to study Islam, brothers and sisters. We have to take this very seriously. And so many misconceptions around, we don't know. I didn't remember how many times a brother or sister come and tell me, someone classmate asked me this question. I didn't know how to answer. Co-worker asked me this question. I didn't know how to answer this. None of us is perfect, but we need to study, read Al-Qur'an, read the seerah of the Prophet, read the aqwal of our great ulama, in order to be able to educate ourselves, our children, and our fellow Americans about what Islam is, instead of keep saying, no, Islam is not, and Islam is not. Jazakumullah khair. I'll stop here, and inshallah, Imam Mikhail and Imam Mustafa will elaborate more on this. Jazakumullah khair.